Y'all, sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. Today's video, we are talking about a massive failure on my part. But here's the thing, you learn from it. If you don't try new things, you're not going to learn and you're not going to possibly find something better. So I'm sharing with you what happened today when I stopped doing promoted listings on eBay. Little bit of history, if you guys follow my channel or you don't, you know my sales have kind of been wonky and not great all year. So I'm messing with things and I'm trying to figure out how to get them to come back. I got kind of pissed off, honestly, full disclosure. I got kind of mad. I was like, my sales suck. Why am I paying this promoted listing fee? I'm going to shut it off. And I'm going to share with you what happened when I did in hopes that you guys can learn from it and that you can also try some things on your own. Obviously, your store is different than mine. So what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you, but I'm going to share you the data and the charts that I'm looking at to decide that it was a massive fail, and then share with you 4 things that I learned in doing this little A/B testing that I'm going to be using moving forward. So let's go ahead. You want to see me small and this big. we're on eBay. We are on my seller hub. If you're not familiar, I'm up here on performance and then I'm down on traffic. I'm looking at the past 30 days. So I'm filming this in the middle of September. We're going to scroll down. We're looking at traffic. So this is how many people are viewing my items, right? If people don't see your items, they cannot buy them. So it starts at the top with traffic. I'll link a video up here that really talks about, I have a little funnel system going on and stuff, but it starts with traffic and your impressions. There's 2 impressions. There's organic, where people naturally find your items, and then there's promoted listings on eBay. This is where you're paying eBay to put your items in front of people in addition to the organic traffic that you're getting. And take a guess. Can y'all guess when I ended my promoted listings? Ding, 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 right here. You can see there's no traffic coming from promoted listings. That's to be expected. I was not paying for it. Now, what does this do to my sales? So now we're going to come up over here onto sales. We're looking at the same time period for sales. My sales are down 19%. Now I have started, as you saw in the traffic, you can see the promoted listings came up. So I only did it for like 4 days and it was horrendous. And so I was like, I have to start over again. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. I want to scroll down and let you guys take a look at my sales for that time period. They definitely had a decrease during that time period. We can look overall. So if you come up here and you go to custom, the time period for me when I stopped was the 22nd through the 25th. Yeah, through the 25th. So I did 4 days and I was like, ugh, I stopped. My sales were down 56%. Now, here's the benefit. My net sales were only down 50%, which means I was not paying as many promoted listing fees, right? So it did help minimize my fees, but it also decreased my sales 56%. So just be mindful of that. It absolutely had an impact on my sales, as you can see. If people cannot see your items, they cannot buy your items. Now, depending on what category you're in, if you're in something like collectibles and there's only one item and people searching for it, then you probably don't need promoted listings as much as I do, right? But I'm showing you how to look at the charts and make these decisions for yourself. So let's get into what I'm going to show you one more chart that's really important to look at as you're trying to figure out what promoted listings are actually doing for you. And then I'm going to share with you the 4 things that I learned and what I'm doing moving forward. Again, you want to see me small and the charts big. If you come up to marketing and then you go to your dashboard, this is the dashboard for all your promoted listings. It gives you a lot more information. I'm not going to necessarily get into all these numbers. I will link a video up here that walks through what these numbers are, what they mean, how to help them make decisions on your promoted listings. But I want you to see what happens. You stop doing promoted listings and your promoted listing traffic goes down. Completely makes sense, right? You're not paying for it. They're not promoting it anymore. However, and we'll just cruise right through the 4 things that I learned. The one thing that I learned and what I'm going to be doing moving forward is I'd had a promoted campaign set since December of last year. It kept on going. And I would get questions or recommendations that, hey, you should end a promotion and start it over again, kind of like I do with sales, right? Well, the purpose that I do that for sales is if people think that the item's not going on sale or the item's not going to be on sale tomorrow, they're going to buy it today. They don't know that I'm going to do another sale next week or probably tomorrow, right? It's a buyer behavior is the reason for that. However, for promoted listings, listings in doing this, it doesn't work the same here. You can see I ended promoted listings, and then on the 25th, I was like, that was an awful idea, Sarah. Like, knock it off. And I started promoted listings again. But it has taken almost, 2 weeks for my promoted listings to get back from a performance impression wise to where they were before I stopped them. So if you're going in and ending a promotion and starting it again, it takes weeks for it to ramp up. And this kind of makes sense because eBay has they have millions and millions of listings in all different categories. And they've told us for like pushing out to Google, they can only push so many items out to Google on a daily basis just from a pure quantity perspective. Not that they don't want to, but there's just only so much time and space and back-ended algorithm things in the day to be able to do it. Well, it's got to be the same from promoted listings, right? You have, especially if you have a lot of listings, I'd be interested to know, I have 2,600 listings. So if you guys have less listings, I would venture to say that this goes up quicker. And if you have more listings, I would venture to say it takes you longer to ramp back up because they're probably only, and this is the probably, I have no basis from eBay telling me this. So if you guys know otherwise, this is just me looking at the charts and understanding how eBay works in my best educated guess on this, right? But they only have so much time to promote so many listings. And so, you know, for, let's say for 2,600, they're doing 200 a day. It's going to take time to get to all 2,600 of mine. If you have 10,000 listings, it might take you even longer. Like I said, my best educated guess based off of this chart and knowing how eBay works. I'd be very interested to know if you have less items, if it ramps up faster, and if you have more items, if it ramps up slower, or if you have information from eBay saying, yes, Sarah, you're correct. No, Sarah, you're wrong. Again, that is my best educated guess. So that's the first thing that I learned is moving forward, I'm starting on a campaign and I am leaving it. Unless there is a reason that I need to end it for whatever reason. You can go into the campaigns, and like I said, I'll link a video up here on how to set up promoted listings and really get into a lot of those numbers. But you can set up a campaign and you can go in and mess with it. So if I'm like, hey, I want to do 15% today and tomorrow I want to do 10%, you can go in and mess with that same campaign. So I'm not going to be ending campaigns and starting them over again. I am leaving it where it's at because it is increasing my sales, right? So let's take a look at that chart. I ramped up my impressions, or I wrapped up my promoted listings again. Impressions are getting back up. That's what we're looking at. Impressions, right? Which is good, but if it doesn't translate to sales, it doesn't matter, right? Then you're not paying, then it's not necessarily worth it. For me, let's take a look. It did, that's my listings. You guys don't want to see my listings. It did increase my sales. We're going to look at the last 31 days so you guys can see the chart. Generate report. So I'm clicking on the last 31 days. Remember, I was down 56% from those couple days that I did promoted listings. Now I'm only down 19%. My net sales are down only 12%, which is great news for me. If we scroll down here, you can see this is kind of the time period when I stopped it. So I'm still getting some sales, but you can definitely see here there is a trend. Obviously, I have, some days, but if you look at the overall trajectory of that chart, it's an upward slope, and it's also showing me in my 19%. So a couple things that I want to talk about here, and I'm actually going to come over to the promoted listing sales because this is interesting. This is the second thing that I learned. Look, I stopped on the 22nd and I started back on the 25th, but look, I have sales from my promoted listings. But I stopped my promoted listings. So here's what happens, friends. When you stop your promoted listings, any of your, or not just when you stop, but this is how promoted listings work. They recently changed this in the spring seller update. So I had to remind myself. I had a couple social media people I asked on my Instagram too, and I was like, oh yeah, that's what happened. When someone looks at your item, from a promoted listing, so let's say someone sees it as a promoted listing, they click on it, they don't want to buy it. But then they come back in 15 days. In 2 weeks, they come back and they're like, I do actually really want that. I'm going to buy it now. Because they came back within 30 days from looking at the item as a promoted listing, you are paying the promoted listing fees. That is why you're not seeing all my sales or as many as before from promoted listings, but that's why you're seeing these two lines right here that are from promoted listings. So be mindful when you are making strategies, when you're thinking about promoted listings, that your promoted listing, if it's looked at, that rate, whatever it is for the next 30 days. The big reason that I say to be mindful of this is when you're looking at the data, you need to give it a full month of information to say, hey, is this rate right? Is this whatever change I made right? Now, I understand that I'm saying that as I did 4 days of not doing promoted listings, and I was like, no, because 56% decline in 4 days was enough for me to be like, this is not great. But if you're going from like a 15% to a 17%, give it a full month, because you're not, until after 30 days, that new rate is not going to be complete for all of your listings, if that makes sense, right? You may still have some from the old rate. You may have some still from the new rate, because it's 30 days from when you ended the old rate and started the new rate, right? So that's the second thing that was learned. I wouldn't say necessarily learned. I knew that, but it really hit home when I cut out the fees and I was like, I'm done. I don't want to pay any more eBay fees. And then I was still paying eBay fees. And I was like, well, that's weird. Why is that happening? So then the third thing, right? Let's see, right now. All right, so here's the thing, friends. This is ultimately, I'm going to share what I'm doing now, what I learned. Am I going to keep promoted listings? You can see I already turned them back on. And for me, number 3 and number 4 kind of go together. For me, I need it. You have to have, I am in a category that has, what was it last time I did the video, like 5 million other women's t-shirts. I need the visibility, right? I need the visibility to be able to show. We're going to look at my traffic tab again. I need that visibility to be able to increase my sales. It's just the way that it is in my category. I don't recommend getting mad and saying, I don't want to pay any more eBay fees, and doing it, or do it and see what happens. Maybe it's different for you, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I need to keep my level head and need to remind myself that, hey, I don't like paying these extra fees, but the alternative to not paying the extra fees for promoted listings is not having sales, right? So finding different strategies and different ways to continue to sell items, and just knowing that I'm going to have to pay fees. That being said, as I was going through this, I'm trying to think outside the box and think of different things. I'm pulling a listing quality report. I will link a video up here of how to do that. But in the listing quality report, it compares you to your category and the top 5% of sellers and lots of different metrics. But in there, it'll tell you for the different categories that you sell in, it tells you what rate that category, what the average selling rate is for that category. Most sellers are at this rate. Most of my categories are at 7%. I was currently doing 18% when I got pissed off and did 0. So I've started back up at 15%, right? Which is still double what most sellers are doing. So I'm, like I said, wait 30 days. I'm doing 15% so that I can get my sales back. Because remember, it takes time to ramp up. You can see just in the past day or two, I'm back to the level that I was at before. So I'm going to give that a week or two before I mess with anything else and get back my normal level of bad sales back, and then try and lower my rate from there. So lesson learned here, friends. Promoted listings in my category is absolutely necessary. Don't get mad at eBay because it does nothing but hurt you. No, there's other things that you guys can do for sure, but that was absolutely an emotional decision that I was like, I'm not making sales anyway. I don't want to pay money. Let's see what happens. Ultimately, I learned from it. Ultimately, it's making a good video to help you guys learn from it as well. If you guys like this, make sure to check out this video. YouTube thinks you would like this video, and I make sure to subscribe to follow me and see what happens with my sales.